Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be discussing one of my favorite photography quotes of all time, and that is a quote by famous photographer Henri Cartier-Bresson, and he said at some point in time, your first 10,000 photos are your worst. Now, of course, we're going to be discussing what he might have meant by this, what were his intentions, but more importantly, we're going to be breaking down this quote and see what we can actually learn from it, and what we can apply therefore to our work and our photography. And my goal with this video is precisely that you can leave inspired and learn something, whether that is to keep an open eye, whether that is you need to adopt a new perspective towards your photography, something that can be helpful towards you in your growth as a photographer. And so yeah, I think presentations or introductions have been done, so why don't you just grab a drink, make yourself comfortable, and let's go straight to another video. In the early 1930s, Henri Cartier-Bresson came across a photograph of three boys, titled Three Boys at Lake Tanganyika, taken in 1929 by Martin Munkachi. And to him, this photo represented a sort of spark that set a fire, that made him realize that photography could reach eternity through the moment. And this importance of the moment was something he continued working on, eventually reaching his so-called notion of the decisive moment, which in a way corresponds to a fleeting moment where all elements align, revealing something honest and genuine about the world, and according to Bresson, it was the photographer's job to know when to fire the shutter and get this moment. In fact, Cartier-Bresson's photography, which has been described by many as humane and spontaneous, did help legitimize street and documentary photography as an art. However, he also became a successful documentary filmmaker, a co-founder of Magnum Photos, and dedicated part of his life to drawing and painting. Nevertheless, what brings us to him today is his philosophy, and among many other interesting thoughts and ideas, Bresson said, your first 10,000 photographs are your worst. And when we break it down and analyze it from a perspective of shooting film in Bresson's time, in order to get 10,000 photos, we'd have to shoot around 277 to 278 rolls of film, with 36 exposures each. And if we say we shoot about 1 or 2 rolls per week, then we're talking about work developed across 3 years. And so in here is the first thing we can learn with this sentence, and that is that practice makes perfect. And here is our first lesson: practice makes perfect. And of course, like any other discipline in life, you can have a natural talent for it. However, photography, like filmmaking, writing, etc., is one of those things that the key also relies on patience and practice. Because I feel that patience and practicing is the things that is going to take you far in terms of like make you more comfortable with, composition, kind of like make it more natural and organic for you to go out with a camera and capture and instantly know what you're looking for. Also kind of like with trying and sort of like practicing photography, you'll understand what is it that attracts you to photography, what it is that you want to capture, your themes, your ideas. And I think that's very important, and this only comes with time and practice. And another interesting aspect here as well that we can break down is that, of course, like if I look back at some of the photos I've taken 3 and 4 years ago, I can see exactly why some of the photos weren't great, but I can also see why some of the photos were instrumental in kind of like letting me know what I was looking for with my photography and what I could improve with it. And I think this is very, very important. And so we should take our first images as sketches, and with time, with practice and experience, we'll get to where we want to be. And I think this is the key here, is to have an humble approach and realize that you kind of have to practice until you make perfect. And of course, perfect here is a figure of speech. I think perfect is a subjective thing, but until you get to a point where you're comfortable with your photography, you know what you're doing, you know where your subjects are, and you develop your style. And I guess that now that we've uncovered the first lesson, let's see what are the lessons there are for us to learn with this quote: your first 10,000 photos are your worst. And the second lesson here, to connect with the first one, of practice makes perfect is, of course, experiment. And the importance of experimenting in photography is absolutely vital, because it's with experimenting with your photography, whether that is different cameras, whether that is different subjects, going on group walks, photo walks, portraits, fine art photography, architecture photography, whatever it is that you try, you'll get a sense of what it is that you want with your photography. And I think this is very important, because experimenting is the essence of finding who you are, what you want to say, and what you want to do with your work, figuring out your limits and boundaries. And since we're talking about Cartier-Bresson, he almost exclusively used Leica 35mm rangefinder cameras, which he paired with 50mm lenses or wide-angle lenses for landscape. And as he found his subject and his technique whilst out and about experimenting, so can you and me. And so here's our second lesson: always experiment and never be afraid of trying new things. And in this quest of practicing and experimenting, what's the importance of gear? Does gear matter? Well, the question is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we photographers need to connect with our gear, in the sense that it shouldn't make our lives difficult and shouldn't be in our way, but rather make it more organic and easier for us to do our work. And I touched this point in my last video about the Mamiya 7. However, gear also doesn't matter, in the sense that the quality of our gear is not a synonym of the quality of our work. Having the best quality lens and latest camera doesn't mean it will improve our work. So in conclusion, gear only matters if it's viewed as a tool or tools for us to produce our work. And we've been talking about loads of things until now, but going back to the center of the question, I think if we ask ourselves, is our first 10,000 photos, are they going to be really bad? Like all of them, there's no salvation in a way. I think we have to look at this as a sort of figure of speech, of course. I think what Bresson is trying to tell you and me is that, like anything in life, photography has a learning curve. And of course, naturally, your first steps in anything new, you're going to make mistakes. You're prone to make mistakes, because mistakes, or the capacity of making mistakes, it's only human, and that is something we all are. So going through like overexposing and or underexposing, I think the third lesson here is to not get overwhelmed by photography in this case, and it's okay to make mistakes. So the third lesson is it's okay to make mistakes and don't be too hard on yourself. And I like this idea because for me, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing such a simple quote and so much to learn from it. And so in essence, our first 10 photos equate to our first years as photographers. Therefore, we're talking about maturity, experience, and consistency, which will come with time. Because one thing is sure, we can only learn from our mistakes, and we can only improve from our missteps. So don't expect to be great or even very good right away. It's all about learning. And every photo you take adds to your experience and your wisdom. So this has been all for today. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. I'm going to be leaving down below links to my work and to my print shop, which is currently open, so you're more than welcome to grab a print if you'd like to do so. And if you like these sort of videos, I know they were a bit more philosophical, this one, let me know as well. I like to have some feedback, constructive, positive. It's always good to keep an open mind and to keep a sort of like dialogue between us. And yeah, I guess that I'll be seeing you around for another video very soon, so stay safe, keep shooting film, subscribe for a cookie, peace.